10 curious facts about Jesus Christ. Number 1. The Word made flesh. Beyond being a prophet or a teacher, the most profound fact about Jesus Christ is found in the Gospel of John. In its prologue, chapter 1, verse 14, he is described as the Word, in Greek logos, who became flesh and dwelt among us. This is not merely a poetic title. In Greek philosophy, the logos represented divine reason and the ordering principle of the cosmos. By identifying Jesus as the incarnate logos, the text asserts that the very reason for existence, the creative power of God, took on human form. This idea is fundamental to Christian theology and distinguishes Jesus from any other religious figure in history. He is not presented as someone who attained enlightenment or simply conveyed a divine message, but as the physical and tangible manifestation of God Himself. It is the belief that in Jesus, humanity could see, touch, and hear the Creator of the universe in a direct and personal way, inseparably uniting the divine and the human in one person. Therefore, the most curious and transcendental fact is not an event in His life, but His very nature. The assertion that Jesus is God incarnate is the pillar upon which the entire Christian faith is built. This concept challenged both Jewish conceptions of a single, indivisible God and pagan ideas of distant or capricious gods, presenting a God who enters human history to redeem it from within. Number 2. The hidden meaning of I am. When Jesus uttered the words I am, in Greek ego eimi, he was not simply identifying himself. In the Jewish context, this phrase carried immense theological weight. It was a direct reference to the sacred name of God revealed to Moses at the burning bush, described in the book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 14. When Moses asked for God's name, the reply was, I am who I am. This name, YHWH in Hebrew, was so sacred that devout Jews avoided pronouncing it, using titles like Adonai, Lord, instead. Jesus used this phrase on multiple key occasions in the Gospel of John, declaring, I am the bread of life, I am the light of the world, I am the resurrection and the life, and most directly, when facing those who came to arrest him, he simply said, I am, causing them to fall to the ground. By using this expression, he was attributing divinity to himself in a way that was unmistakable to his audience. It was not a simple claim of existence, but a declaration of identity with the God of Israel. This bold use of I am was one of the primary reasons the religious authorities considered him blasphemous. To them, a carpenter from Nazareth claiming the sacred name of God was an intolerable insult to their faith. However, for his followers, it was confirmation that they were in the presence of the one whose name is above every name, the eternal, self-existent God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Number 3. The Multidisciplinary Craftsman. The profession of Jesus and his father Joseph is commonly translated as carpenter. However, the original Greek word used in the Gospels is tekton. This term has a much broader meaning, describing an artisan or builder who worked with various materials, not just wood. A tekton was a master craftsman who could work with stone, metal, and, of course, wood, making them an essential figure in constructing buildings, crafting furniture, agricultural tools, and other necessities of daily life. In the region of Galilee, where Jesus grew up, construction was a major activity. Cities like Sepphoris were undergoing significant development under Herod Antipas, requiring skilled artisans. It is highly probable that Jesus and Joseph did not just make tables and chairs, but also participated in larger construction projects, working with stone to erect walls or crafting wooden yokes for oxen. This would have given Jesus a deep understanding of materials, construction techniques, and the physical exertion of manual labor. This perspective of Jesus as a tekton enriches the understanding of his parables. When he speaks of building on rock instead of sand, of the cornerstone rejected by the builders, or of the yoke that is easy, he is not using abstract metaphors. He is speaking from his own lived experience, using images and concepts that he and the common people around him knew intimately from their daily work. His teaching was rooted in the tangible reality of the artisan's world. Number 4. The language of his parables. Jesus was a master of communication, and his preferred teaching tool was the parable. But what is curious is not just that he used them, but why. When his disciples asked him why he spoke in parables, according to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, verses 10 to 13, Jesus explained that it was to reveal the mysteries of the kingdom to his followers while simultaneously concealing them from those with hardened hearts. The parables acted as a spiritual filter. The stories he told, such as that of the sower, the prodigal son, or the Good Samaritan, were intentionally ambiguous on a surface level. To the casual listener, they were simple tales about daily life in Galilee. However, for those sincerely seeking truth, these stories invited deeper reflection, compelling the listener to actively engage in interpretation and discover the hidden spiritual meaning. He did not hand over the truth on a silver platter. Instead, he sowed it in people's minds to let it germinate. This method was both merciful and judicial. It gave every person the chance to respond according to the disposition of their heart. Those with ears to hear could decipher the heavenly message within the earthly narrative. Those who refused to see beyond the surface were left with just a story, thus fulfilling the prophecy of Isaiah that seeing they will not see, and hearing they will not hear or understand. It was an ingenious way to separate the curious from the committed. Number 5. The Transfiguration, a glimpse of glory. One of the most mysterious and visually spectacular events in Jesus' life is the Transfiguration. Narrated in the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, this event occurred on a high mountain where Jesus took 3 of his closest disciples, Peter, James, and John. There, his appearance radically changed. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became a dazzling white, whiter than any launderer on earth could bleach them, according to Mark, chapter 9, verse 3. During this event, he was not alone. 2 of the most important figures from the Old Testament appeared with him, Moses and Elijah. Moses represented the law, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, while Elijah represented the prophets. Their appearance and conversation with Jesus symbolized that the law and the prophets bore witness to him, and that his work was the fulfillment of all that had been written before. Jesus came not to abolish, but to fulfill. The climax of the event was when a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from heaven, identified as God the Father, declared, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." The Transfiguration was a crucial moment that served multiple purposes. It strengthened the faith of the 3 disciples, who would become pillars of the early church. It revealed Jesus' divine nature before his passion in Jerusalem, and it confirmed his superiority over the most revered figures in Israel's history. It was a foretaste of his future celestial glory. Number 6. The connection to Melchizedek. One of the most enigmatic titles applied to Jesus Christ is High Priest in the Order of Melchizedek, as detailed in the Epistle to the Hebrews. Melchizedek is a mysterious figure who appears briefly in the book of Genesis, chapter 14. He is described as the king of Salem, ancient Jerusalem, and priest of God Most High, who blessed Abraham and received tithes from him. His appearance is abrupt, and no mention is made of his genealogy or his death. The connection of Jesus to Melchizedek is theologically profound. The traditional Jewish priesthood, the Levitical one, was based on descent from Aaron, of the tribe of Levi. Jesus, being from the tribe of Judah, could not be a priest under that law. However, the author of Hebrews argues that Jesus' priesthood is of a higher and more ancient order, that of Melchizedek, which depends not on lineage, but on a direct divine appointment. Melchizedek, having no recorded genealogy, symbolizes an eternal priesthood. By establishing this parallel, Jesus is presented as the perfect and eternal mediator. Unlike the Levitical priest who died and needed to be replaced, Christ's priesthood is perpetual. Furthermore, while earthly priests offered animal sacrifices repeatedly, Jesus offered himself once and for all. This fact connects Jesus to the most ancient scriptures of Israel in an unexpected way, demonstrating that his priestly role was prefigured centuries before the Levitical system. Number 7. The sweat of blood. During his agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, just before his arrest, the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, verse 44, describes an extraordinary physical phenomenon, and being in an agony he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. This event is not a mere metaphor for his anguish, but describes a real and extremely rare medical condition known as hematohydrosis. Hematohydrosis occurs under conditions of extreme stress or panic. The intense anguish can cause the rupture of the capillaries that feed the sweat glands. As a result, blood mixes with sweat and is excreted through the skin. The fact that Luke, traditionally considered to be a physician, is the only evangelist to include this specific detail adds a level of clinical credibility. This fact reveals the depth of the human anguish Jesus experienced at the prospect of the crucifixion and, theologically, of bearing the sin of the world. It was not just a spiritual or emotional suffering. His body reacted physically in the most extreme way possible. The image of Jesus sweating blood underscores the intensity of his internal struggle and the reality of his incarnation, showing that his suffering was not a theatrical act, but a terrifyingly real and visceral ordeal. Number 8. His brothers and sisters. A fact that often generates debate is the mention in the Gospels of Jesus' brothers and sisters. For example, in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, verse 3, the people of his hometown Nazareth ask in astonishment, "Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" This indicates that Jesus had at least 4 named brothers and an unspecified number of sisters. The interpretation of who exactly these brothers, in Greek edaphoi, were varies among different Christian traditions. The Catholic and Orthodox churches, which uphold the perpetual virginity of Mary, interpret these as cousins of Jesus or sons of Joseph from a previous marriage. The word adelphos can have a broad meaning in Koine Greek, referring to close relatives and not strictly to blood siblings with the same parents. On the other hand, most Protestant denominations interpret the term in its most literal sense, concluding that Mary and Joseph had other children after the virginal birth of Jesus. This view is supported by passages like Matthew chapter 1 verse 25, which states that Joseph knew her not until she had given birth to a son. Regardless of the theological interpretation, the historical fact is that Jesus did not grow up as an only child, but in the context of a larger family, which adds a dimension of normalcy and humanity to his upbringing. Number 9. The friend he resurrected before himself. Although the resurrection of Jesus is the central miracle of Christianity, he was not the only person he brought back from the dead. The most famous and emotional case is that of his friend Lazarus of Bethany, recounted in the Gospel of John, chapter 11. What makes this miracle particularly curious is the timing. When informed that Lazarus was sick, Jesus deliberately waited 2 more days before going to Bethany. By the time he arrived, Lazarus had already been dead for 4 days. In the popular Jewish belief of the time, it was thought that a person's soul remained near the body for 3 days after death. By waiting until the 4th day, Jesus ensured there could be no doubt that Lazarus was truly and completely dead. This made the miracle undeniable and much more powerful, a demonstration of his absolute authority over death itself. The resurrection of Lazarus was not just an act of compassion for his friends Mary and Martha. It served as the final miracle that catalyzed the plot for his own death. The Sanhedrin, seeing Jesus' popularity soar because of this great sign, decided he must be eliminated to prevent a popular uprising. Thus, by giving life to his friend, Jesus sealed his own fate on the path to the cross, demonstrating that his power over death would ultimately be validated in his own resurrection. Number 10. The temptation in the wilderness. After his baptism, but before beginning his public ministry, Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan for 40 days and 40 nights. This period of fasting and trial is one of the most introspective and theologically charged episodes of his life. What is curious is how Jesus confronted each of the 3 temptations recorded in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. He did not use divine power or perform miracles to defend himself. For each temptation, to turn stones into bread, to jump from the temple to be saved by angels, and to worship Satan in exchange for all the kingdoms of the world, the only weapon Jesus used was the Word of God. He responded to each proposal by quoting directly from the Old Testament scriptures, specifically from the book of Deuteronomy. Man shall not live by bread alone. You shall not put the Lord your God to the test, and you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. This method is profoundly significant. Jesus, being fully God, chose to face temptation in his full humanity, relying solely on faith and knowledge of the scriptures, exactly the same tools available to any believer. He demonstrated that the Word of God is sufficient to overcome any spiritual trial. This episode not only validated his sinlessness, but also established a model for his followers on how to resist temptation.
Thank you for watching our video. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Give it a like, comment your thoughts, and share this video with your friends and family.